we'll go ahead and start with what is the equation form of a linear function that everyone knows, which would be y is equal to mx plus b. Now, I know you know this, but I'm going to just write it out anyway. M is equal to the slope. B is the y-intercept. The function form means the same thing. It's just now could be written f of x is equal to mx plus b. Sometimes it's not f, it could be any particular letter. You could have c of x is equal to mx plus b. Generally, c of x could stand for a cost function. You could have p of x is equal to mx plus b, where p could be the pressure of something. Generally, when you write it in the function form, the first letter that you're using for the function tends to talk about what the y piece is. So just remember with all of this that each and every time we're talking about this, that p of x or c of x or f of x, that just is y. It means exactly the same thing. Slope is the same thing. Slope is still the change of y over the change of x, or y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. A skill that's really important is being able to look at a graph and understand what the x and y coordinates are and what the slope is. So if I'm looking at a graph that shows the value in $100 of bobblehead collection over a time in years, and we want to interpret the graph, first we want to label x and y. A key word here is over time in years. Now, what this tells us is it refers to slope, because when we have the slope of something, remember that is the change in y over the change of x. Sometimes instead of over, we will use the word per, but whenever you have this, the slope is always the output of something over the input. And in this case, the input is time in years. So the x is going to be time, and the y value is in terms of dollars. Now, the reason this is important here is it's in terms of a $100, so that just doesn't mean that this is 2 here. It means the scale for the y-axis is actually 200, 400, 600, and so on. Now, there's 2 ways we can go through and interpret this. Let's look at these 2 points right here, the initial point on my graph and the second point where the graph ends. What those 2 points are is the first piece is x is 0 and the y value is 400. Now that means at the very initial, it looks like the first time the person bought the collection was for the start, which is my x value, which is the very beginning of the graph, had a value of 400. Then over the next few years, the graph is going up, and the second point that I have there, this is my x value of 4. So at 4 years, now the collection is worth $800. If I want to find the slope of that, that's just your tried and true slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which gives me 800 minus 400 over 4 minus 0, or 400 divided by 4, or my slope in this case is 100. But what is the units? Because the units are extremely important when you're dealing with this. I'm going to go back to my y over my x, my output over my input, which again is just going to be my dollars over years. Now, if for any reason this graph, instead of increasing, which means I have a positive slope going up, the positive slope means the value is going up. If for any reason this graph decided, and I shouldn't say the graph decided, but the graph told us that now it was going like this, what that means is after 10 years, the value was $0, which means the value of that collection went down to $0 over 10 years.